And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. Got a great show in store for you tonight. I have the author of this book, Wish for Amnesia, Barbara Rosenthal, is joining us in the studio, and she's going to be reading from it, and we're going to be hearing a lot about this book. And I heard it the other night. It's an excerpt from it. I haven't had a chance to read the entire thing, but I can't wait to. And it's sort of surrealistic and has an interesting history. So thank you very much for joining us, Barbara Rosenthal, here on Let Them Talk.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Great. So tell us a little bit about how long you've been working on this book.
Between 1980 and 85, I drafted the first few drafts, and by 1990, it was in enough of good shape to have an agent for it, which was Gunther Stillman, who was Anais Nin's agent and the editor of her journals. I was quite lucky. And he tried to place it with some, the best big publishers, but he didn't have any luck by the time he died. So I was left without an agent. And I work on many things, videos and photographs and other things, and,
Sure.
and I have an international career and everything. So things happen kind of at the same time. So projects get put on the back burner and then they come forward. And over these years, I've made revisions and found and looked for other agents, and finally it just landed on Joseph Quintella's desk.
Right.
At
Who's been on the show.
Press.
Joseph has been a guest on the show and talked about his work. So it's great that we're coming full circle and having you on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Barbara. You're a lifelong New Yorker.
Yeah, so I was born in the Bronx in the shadow of Yankee Stadium, as we say.
Oh wow, okay. And so it's rare. So I've lived my whole life in New York City. I was actually born right outside of the city, but not too far away. And my family is from here, so it's great we have that in common, right? And the Bronx was one of my great haunts growing up. So tell us, how did that influence your writing, living in New York City and growing up in the Bronx?
We moved to Franklin Square, Long Island, which is right across the Queens border on the what was at the time called the B line bus line to the subway, to the F train. And so as a teenager, I went to the Brooklyn Museum Art School and other things. I had access to the city, and my friend Marty and I used to we did poetry readings at the Cafe Wa. We kind of joined. We were like the only females ever in Slugs and McSorley's, and we were just kids. So the city growing up, I did not grow up as an elementary school teacher in the city, except that my father took us always on the weekends to museums and things.
Sure.
But as a kid, kids were allowed to run free in the 60s, and I certainly did.
All right. And how did that does that inform your art? Because you basically made a career doing this kind of art, doing media art and other things, right? How did that turn out? How did you begin doing that?
Well, I got my degrees in painting, BFA from Carnegie Mellon University and MFA from Queens College. And my BFA year abroad, my junior year abroad, I spent studying art and art history in Rome. So that is definitely a part of the book.
Right.
The main female character is an artist who's teaching in Rome.
Sure. And tell us a little bit about the book. What is the basic thrust of the book? What was the main idea behind it all?
It's about the son of Holocaust survivors who develops a messianic complex. I think that the words righteous and worthy, that he felt it his duty to be righteous and worthy, were something that, as a Jewish child, I grew up with. That it was our mandate to be the best person that we could and to make the world better. Not in the way that you make other people adhere to your own beliefs or styles, but like if you see a piece of paper on the ground, you pick it up. Right. Whatever these little things are that make the world better, that it's up to you to do it.
Mm-hmm. I see. So that is. I saw the word surrealistic used in describing this book. Is that true? Is that accurate? Is the surrealistic side to what you're writing here?
I thought it was really fantastic that you described it that way. The literary term is magic realism. Wikipedia has me cross-referenced with surrealist art, and I have several things. The word surrealist in this context mean more about the photographs. My photographs are
yeah.
The aura, the aura.
Well, if you hold it up for a second, maybe we can zoom in. Find one you want to show. Yeah, right. Find a surrealistic photograph. We can zero in on it if you like.
Well, maybe there's one.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that you have something in nature that looks like it comes from a dream.
Yeah. Just hold it still.
I've written.
Yeah, just that.
Virgos. I've written about the relationship between my definition of surrealism, which might be kind of neo-surrealism, and the classical surrealism.
Right. What is surrealism? I mean, how would you? To me, it's Salvador Dali. I think it's Salvador Dali or Magritte or something like that, right? But obviously, it's broader than that. It's a broader meaning than just one artist.
In general, it means imagery and both textual imagery and visual imagery that comes in some way from the subconscious. The way the classical surrealists used it, I feel that their work came from a different part of their brain, that they actually consciously decided what objects and things were not normal objects, or the context of the objects, and they put those things together. And that's why I think of mine as more of a neo-surrealism, because my things come directly from the subconscious. I don't know what I'm doing until I analyze them afterward. In fact, last night, Joseph asked for me to absolutely clarify the pronunciation of Chaim and Chava. And
that's the lead character in your...
No, these are the parents that escaped the Holocaust. They were teenagers when they fought the resistance and did other things.
Is this made based on a true story, or is it something that's entirely from your mind?
Yeah, it's all from my mind. All of the characters are... I mean, people say, are you the artist character? Are you the Messiah character? Whatever.
I guess that's what I was getting at, right?
Yeah, I'm all the characters. Like Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf. Like each of the characters are part of his head. Right. So what happened with Joseph is today I've been quite exhausted and I've been sleeping on and off all day. And the Chaim and Chava situation kind of occurred to me that those names both mean life. And Chaya, the woman, the mother, the teenage girl, like Snow White, at the beginning of the book, is the name that Adam gave Eve. So she becomes or is or was the actual life force. And in fact, she was the generative female in the book, in the prologue. And that type of understanding of my symbolism never comes until way after it happens. Sometimes, and this is true in my visual art or my video, this happens during the course of the work sometimes, so that I will check what I've been saying to see if it's consistent with what I've understood my meaning to be. And it's one of the reasons that my work does develop over such a long period of time. So over these 30 years, I went back into the book and revised it and revised it and revised it.
And so the book's available now, right?
Yep.
Where can people find it? Or find out more about it?
Well, the distributors are Ingram and Small Press Distribution, but they have actually, in point of fact, not received copies for distribution yet. So it's Joseph Quintella's Deadly Chaps Press.
Deadly Chaps Press, right?
Website.
And do you know what that is? What the website is? Deadly Chaps Press.
It may be, deadlychapspress.com.
Right.
I would try that first. Or if you put that in the Google thing.
Okay, right. Google it and Deadly. And the name of the book, of course, is
Wish for Amnesia.
Wish for Amnesia, right.
Wish for Amnesia was a wish of another teenage character in the book, Jewel, who happened to be at a party for Jack, the Messiah, the Messiah character.
Would you like to read a piece of it right
Sure,
now?
sure.
We'll read a couple of parts to it and give the readers some idea of what how exciting this book is. Very exciting book.
Sure. I'm going to read from chapter 6, and it should be known that in the way of writing a book for 30 years or working into work all the time, my work is constantly changing and updating itself. So the next printed edition is actually going to be different from this one, and the last printed edition was slightly different. So it's like the leaves of grass.
Right?
What's happening with the cover is you can see there's like a slight brownishness and a few little dents and things. The first edition was completely white, and I thought the next one is going to be slightly darker. And someone said to me, it looks like they're ripening. And I thought, oh yeah, that's what's happening. So if you do end up getting a set of Wish for Amnesia, that'll happen. Okay, so this is Jack meets Beatrice at Kennedy Airport. Jack, who develops the Messiah Complex, is a well-known political activist in New York, and Beatrice is a famous New York artist teaching in Rome. Okay, she's coming back at the end of the semester to meet him. Jack meets Beatrice at Kennedy Airport. Her plane arrived at Kennedy as scheduled, late on a hot, sunny day. Beatrice waited calmly in the air-conditioned terminal of TWA in an area raised above the flux of people crisscrossing near the counters. This is 1968. This happens. A huge bow window backlighted her in dazzling southern rays, glowing pinkly in the air, drawing color from the plush red carpet and whitewashed concrete dome walls. She stood with tranquility in that vaulted space, a black Madonna in the Saarinen Alps, the architecturally praised waiting area slightly elevated from the flow. Black, from head to foot, she formed a silhouette of maximum absorbency, reflecting nothing but her race and sex. Her Bantu parentage was evident beneath her clothing. Today she was in purdah, or a burqa, the black concealing woman's garment of the East. This clothing hid her long, jet-black, straight hair, but not her spirit force, which stood unmistakable against the light. Nor did her costume hide her blindness. She held a thin white stick, more like a wand than a probe, and almost unneeded. Her inner senses guided her through space. Immediately upon entering the terminal, Jack spotted her. He had only half remembered her physical beauty. She was delicate and throbbing like an exquisite winged insect. He started for her through the crowd. Beatrice felt Jack streaming toward her on the floor below. She could hear the turmoil his presence caused. The mass was rapidly parting for his wild, emaciated figure. His head and face were completely shaved, and he towered very tall. He was bare-chested. He wore cheap black plastic sunglasses, taped together leather sandals, and a pair of grotesquely ripped and oversized dungarees held up at his waist by a rope. Everyone rushed to make way for him as the power of his intense concentration cleaved the enormous room. But before Jack reached the waiting platform, a piercing siren blasted. Two men grabbed hold of the blind black artist Beatrice just as the maniacal figure bounded within reach of her. Beatrice sensed this must be Jack, but could not be sure until she touched him or he spoke to her. She flailed at her arms for an instant of connection, and at that instant, security guards restrained them both. There was memory in her fingertips, and she heard his name surge through the crowd. Jack Rubin. But she was stunned by his physical changes. She still could not be certain this was her Jack. A skull? A skeleton? A rope? Her fingers did not receive the feelings they'd expected. She was held as Jack was arrested. Both were questioned several hours. Searched. Jack lawyers came, peace movement lawyers, and finally the couple was released, exhausted.
All right. So that's sort of it has like a '60s thing to it. I mean, the idea of an activist and being arrested and movement lawyers coming and.
It was a time of idealism, and the book has three major sections and times. One is 1944 Poland, when his parents escaped as teenagers, they escaped a transport to Auschwitz, and then they come to New York and bear a child here, Jack Rubin. And then we see Jack as in 1968, when he's the head of one of the heads of the hippie movement, teaching. He's teaching as in anthropology and genetics at Columbia University, and that's when he begins to develop his theories. And that's when Beatrice comes home at this point. And then he eventually marries one of her students, and they have a child, Jewel. And then there's a couple of diary entries of the wife her name is Caroline, during the 70s. And then we jump to 1985, which is when Halley's Comet appears and other types of celestial things. And the idea of the Messiah and the comet, of course, is a very Catholic or Christian kind of idea. So I'm dealing with the universality of messianic characters and what God means, in a contemporary era too.
Barbara Rosenthal is the author of Wish for Amnesia, and she's joined us to read some excerpts from her book and to talk about what led her to write a surrealistic, magical writing. What's it? Magical writing?
Magic realism.
Magic realism.
It's magic realism, philosophy, political fiction in literature is how the publisher is defining it.
Wow. Okay. Very good. And so, and this is a book you've been working on for a long time, but also you had some other avenues. You're a photographer as well, right?
It's very difficult to define me by my medium.
Yeah.
The best we do is something like media and performance. When people say, "Oh, are you a photographer? Are you a video artist? Are you a writer?" I mean, I just say, "I'm Barbara Rosenthal." How did you support yourself
all these years?
What I do.
What did you do for a living all these years? What paid the bills?
Well, for one thing, I tried to live on, as very, very little income as possible.
You have to be that way to be an artist.
I taught at many universities, sometimes as sabbatical replacements with a year contract here and there, but mostly as an adjunct. And what did I teach? I taught photography for 12 years at Parsons and 5 years at SVA. I taught video at Manhattanville. I taught mixed medias at Jersey City State College. And I taught writing for 22 years at the College of Staten Island. So all of the things that I do, I've also taught. And I taught painting, design, and drawing and other things at Nassau College, and probably a few more, Bridgeport and other things like that.
So did you add, was this a completed book when you decided to publish it, or did you have to add or write more to it before?
It's like saying, are you a completed human being? I mean, yeah, at the moment you are what you are, it's done, but it's instant evolving.
It's always evolving, and then you were mentioning earlier that there's even, as we speak, further versions and revisions of the book for future generations.
I imagine, it's not the only work I'm doing, and I imagine I've published 4 other major books, which when I read from them, I do tweak the text. But this is really an enormous thing.
What are the other books you wrote about? We don't have to go all of them, but roughly how would you sum them up?
They're artist books. They're offset. The publisher is Visual Studies Workshop Press. They are images and they're photographs, also from my surreal photos, and their titles are Clues to Myself, which was 1981, Sensations, 1984, and Homo Futurus, which became a major concept for me and is partly in this book.
What does that
well,
mean, Homo Futurus?
The future hominid. What we're going to be. We're not Australopithecus anymore. even, is the hominid a completed work? Not even...
That's more anthropology. Do you have an interest in anthropology?
Yes. I won... my school used to put me up to a lot of prizes and things. So I won this science contest in when I was in the 10th grade science fair thing, with an anthropological project, and then I was given as a gift a fairly major work on the evolution of what they called at the time man, and it's the question of identity has always been important to me, but it's not just. I mean, people do identity projects like this is what I had for breakfast on Tuesday, and this is what I had for breakfast on Wednesday, and I mean, I suppose there's some value in that, or they do identity like there's some sort of generic cliche. Ethnic of one thing, and they tell the same story that anyone in that situation would tell. My kind of question of identity is about how the details of my life tell about what we all are. In fact, Homo Futurus was defined something like that in a review, that it could be considered clues to ourselves, which was a riff on my first book, Clues to Myself.
Right, very interesting. And are you working on any other new books coming out in the future?
Tons. Yeah, there's a little animal cartoon book that I'm going to have the text finished hopefully tomorrow night. I have them all. I have the text all written, but the book isn't made. And a friend of mine said he was going to do the illustrations, and because I don't have a lot of time. Plus, there's another novel. It's called Two Houses Built from Separate Plans and other things.
We're speaking with Barbara Rosenthal, who's the author of Wish for Amnesia, the book that we've been reading from. She's been reading from this evening, and maybe you would like to read a little bit more from that chapter. It was very interesting, and we can go on and a little bit more from Wish for Amnesia, which is just search on the internet to find it.
We're at the point where Jack, the political activist at this time, who becomes the messianic character, gets arrested at Kennedy Airport in 1968 with his girlfriend Beatrice, a blind black artist from New York, who has just returned to New York from Rome. Constant police harassment, Jack said later, in bed in his stifling Glaucus Green apartment. The sheets had not been washed in months. Roaches ran the cupboards. Dust balls swam the floors. This is how the world should end its differences, Jack thought, in bed together, races mixing. It saddened him that Beatrice took precautions against pregnancy, or possibly was unable to bear. He would have liked a love child. She refused to discuss conception. He loosened her long, heavy hair and spread it over their skins, dark and light. His hair had been as black as hers before he'd shaved it. His mother Chava's hair was just like this, although starting to gray. Beatrice felt how especially huge and hot his penis was now, attached to what had become such a bony frame. She could not sense any resemblance now between then, which was something in her memory, as now, that is, a memory of then, not really then, and now, the now itself. Jack's sense of time was understood by her, although she did not share it. They lay in bed, trying to relax away so long apart. She listened to him say words about his political life, each syllable filled with weariness and irony. He said depressing things about his struggle, in a voice so mellifluous there could be no doubt he'd overcome all odds. Unless, she thought sadly, he were stopped violently, like other leaders of the decade. He outlined the edge of both her ears with each of his fingers in turn. Jack's touch didn't match her touch's memory. She stroked his head and body with her hair, draping it over the palm of her hand like gauzy silk, imagining herself belonging to him again, trying to revive the twinship they had felt. His eyes were swollen and enlarged. His face muscles twitched and ticked. His mouth was locked in an artificial grin, and he was dirty. He had sticky lines of filth in all his creases. She could roll balls of his clay in her fingers. His face was patinaed in a grime of oily sweat. His groin and armpits stank. She had to admit this to herself. What was he trying to prove? They lay in the heat of this late spring afternoon, in those charged moments of conversation before the frenzied intercourse of lovers who'd been parted long. The now of the fuck, the now of the fuck bringing everything into the present. I would not have thought this from a Jew, she said. What did she mean? Jack recoiled. The mayor? Beatrice was so cryptic. Words she spoke were never direct. He had said, constant police harassment, and she said, from a Jew. Was she trying to say what? That Jews weren't currently the object of harassment by American police? What did she mean, from a Jew? Why was she holding her nose? It wouldn't do to ask her what she was getting at. Everyone knew Beatrice's famous line, quote, "There is as much effort and epiphany in the comprehension of a production as in its creation. Art and text are sanctified by their beholders." Close quote. She believed that once the effort of communication is made and words are carefully laid down, the rest is up to the perceiver. She believed this about conversation, too. She was right, up to a point. But Jack found her presumption arrogant and annoying. She didn't make it easy. Everything she said had to be considered 2 and 3 times. Every statement had to be referred back to the prior quote, or even to her unspoken thought. And she took so long in her replies. What was it she told him about her new performance piece? The title, Oracle.
Thank you very much, Barbara Rosenthal, for that reading of your book. Let me show everybody the cover. Oh, I'm sorry. And it's Wish for Amnesia. And the publisher is
Deadly Chaps Press.
Deadly Chaps Press. All right. So you can look it up on Deadly Chaps Press and look it up on the internet. And thank you very much for joining us and reading from your wonderful book. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Again, anytime. Thank you very much. And it's very surrealistic. And we'll see you next week on Let Them Talk.